Good evening, everyone. For those who don't know me, and there's probably quite a few, my name is Darlene Alfred, and I serve in the Central Texas Conference, and I have had the privilege of serving on the board of directors for your National United Methodist Women as well. And this event has been something that I have cherished and I have attended too many years to count. I literally grew up in the United Methodist Women with this program and this event. So I'm honored to be here and I'm glad to see all of your faces.
I'm Cynthia Reeves. I serve as the National Vice President of United Methodist Women. And it is my honor to introduce to you tonight our speaker, Harriet Jane Olson, the CEO of United Methodist Women. I don't know if you've taken the opportunity to read her bio, but Harriet is a blessing to us, to all of us. She is a Harvard graduate, an attorney at law, and she has spent her life working with the church and with United Methodist Women in powerful ways that I don't know if we can appreciate in this moment, but I hope we'll try. She is wise. She has a vision to see the future. She has the patience to deal with women just like me, and to guide us in such powerful ways, and to let us know that we are loved. And I think that that love goes from the individual United Methodist women in her circle, hearing Harriet speak on the webinars that she does, and just reading what she has to say to us in Response Magazine. We know that we have strong leadership. We have strong love that comes to us. And Harriet, I know that you are a fan of the Texas Legislative event. You've been here before, and you probably would be here if you could, but we're so glad you're here with us on Zoom. So we look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, friends. Let me see if you can tell me if I'm well heard. Can somebody let me know if the technology is working?
Yes. Well, she can't hear you. Only people in the
All right. I'll assume that it is.
I'm sorry. I am here to tell you you are well heard.
Thank you, Cynthia. I so appreciate it. Friends, Cynthia's absolutely right about at least one thing in that generous introduction, and that's that I am a great fan of the Texas legislative event. I do wish I could be there with you. I know it's been a jam-packed day because jam-packed 2 days. Because I've had the privilege of being there in earlier events. I want to start, of course, by saying thank you not just to Cynthia and Darlene, but also to say thank you to B. Moorhead and to everyone at Texas Impact. I thank you for your work, for the way that you demonstrate to us ways that we can continue to put faith into action, and the way that you inspire us and others to do the same. Friends, tonight I want to start by saying this is a time when we as a people and we as a church seem to be drawing lines that divide, breaking relationships, and experiencing fragmentation. That's why the theme that you've chosen for tonight, Draw the Circle Wide, is so important. We need to be drawing circles rather than lines. We need to find ways to include, to listen, to engage, rather than to exclude and isolate and limit. Tonight, I want to suggest that the circle that we're talking about, we often think about the circle of people, and that's, of course, that's important. All kinds of people that we want to include in the circle. But tonight, I want to suggest that the circle includes more than people. It also includes the planet. I want to start with a very familiar text to you and to say that, just to remind us that in John 3:16, the writer tells us that God so loved the world. Now, if you grew up as I grew up, I always assumed that that meant the people in the world. But in fact, now that I'm reading more theologians and people who know the original languages, I've learned that that word for world is the word cosmos. It's not the word for people. It would be extravagant enough sometimes to say God loves the whole world, not just the children of Israel, right? Because there were boundaries drawn at that era as well. But God loves the whole world, but God loves the whole cosmos, the whole created order, all the things that God has made. Surely, if we could see the world through God's eyes, we would get some sense of this powerful relationship that God has through from the creation that God called good in the very beginning, to the creation that's moving towards new creation and the image of flourishing and abundance that the text concludes with in the book of Revelation. Surely, if we could see that image, we would be even more impelled to stand and protect and take the measures that we need to prevent climate change from damaging not just the people, but the planet. This is, so for me, climate change is an investment in loving what God loves. And it is an instrument to preserve human flourishing, but it's so much more than that. Cynthia referred to my past when I practiced. My primary field was environmental law. And so you can imagine that the work on climate is something that's near and dear to my heart. I always feel like I'm at home when I'm talking about the climactic impacts and the systems that affect it and how it affects our world. From the time that the Bush administration began to undermine the commitments that were made in Kyoto all those years ago, before the Paris Accord, before the recent effort to try to get the world to turn to the needs of climate, I felt like this was a place where I needed to invest, the church needed to invest, and I'm so happy to be part of United Methodist Women's investment in preventing the negative effects of climate change from overtaking us. At that conference, the United States was represented by the Secretary of the Department of the Environment, and that was Todd Whitman, who was my former governor in New Jersey. And to know her work, and to see it undermined as our nation and many others did not put the measures into place to turn the commitments into reality, was to be galvanized to see that work was done. So I'm particularly pleased to see the detail that you all have gone into on climate change. You are working on the pillars that will help us to move to a sustainable future. You already know that it's important to the whole planet. You already know that it's critically important to Texas. I can't imagine what it was like for some Texas residents to be without power for that long period of time in the unexpected cold. We watched from around the country and I no doubt around the world with horror and dismay as all that took place. So I'm very grateful for the detail that and the information that you've received and the training to make a difference, to share your voice, and to remind the legislators why the work to winterize the system is critical work, and why the work for distributed energy sources is critical work. So much more than is in the current plan is needed to bring security to the people of Texas and beyond. As you know, and I'm sure that Bea and others from Texas Impact have said, it's critical that the legislators hear from real Texas voters. They hear plenty from lobbyists and national organizations, and even now occasionally from climate scientists. But they need to hear from you. They need to know that it matters to you. And all of the steps of making the visit, of the follow-up notes, and making contact at local staff offices, as well as in the state capitol, are very important to keep the matter before them, and to let them know that the matter is a local matter. It's not just a global matter, and it's not something that we can defer or delay. One of the things that we know is that when our systems are in stress, the persons who are already struggling are the most desperately affected. Which means that when climate change affects the crop growth in an area, and small farmers need to adapt, it's always harder for them than it is for the large farmer. It's always harder for to get the things that affect women and children first onto the agenda. And your work is critically important there. We know that women represent the largest number of small farmers, not just in the United States, but around the world. And that's why when we work on the issue of climate change nationally, we talk about just energy for all and include adaptation. So how will we help the persons who are disproportionately affected be able to afford the adaptation that will already be required because of all the delays that we have endured since Kyoto and even before? I also want to thank you for your work on voting. So important to engage this at the local level. You may or may not remember that back in 2019, when we were proposing legislation for the 2020 General Conference, United Methodist Women proposed 4 petitions. And one of them was marking the 100th anniversary of the passage of the 19th Amendment. So the 2020 conference was passed in, as you know, in 1920. And we wanted to invite the whole church to celebrate that advance for women, even though we know that it was an advance for most women, not for African American women, not for Hispanic women, not for Native American women, who were kept from the ballot by many means, both local law and local practice up until the 1960s. So we know that the high-level work is very important. The work of the federal government is very important. The constitutional amendment was very important. But we don't really get access unless we support it at the local level. So all of the work that was done about the poll taxes and the literacy tests and the limits that were put on voting hours and all of those things, all those practical impediments affected the ability of women and particularly women of color to exercise the franchise, even though it was constitutionally theirs. So again, your work at the local level is critically important. Now, and it's one of the reasons why United Methodist Women and our predecessors have been invested in the work of suffrage for a long time. The principles are key. And so when you think about the principles that underlie districting and location of polling places and the dates of voting and mail-in ballots and hours of voting, all of those components are critically important because we want the effective franchise. We don't just want rights on paper. We want rights that real women, all of the people who will vote, who are over 18 years of age, all of them to have effective access to the ballot box. And you know, just as it was when that right was new, it's up to us to enforce it today. We need to recognize the threats to our right to vote that pop up across the board. And of course, not just in your town and not just in Texas, but the work of United Methodist Women across the country can make a difference in this area. In fact, it's so important that I wonder whether this is a time for us to consider getting involved ourselves and recruiting other people to be involved directly in the voting process in our locations, to get involved personally, to volunteer to work at the polls, to volunteer to serve on a committee that observes the polls, to do some of the work in our local towns that makes the polls accessible, to help to recruit people who will work at the polls. Those roles have often been filled by women who are active, engaged in their communities. And I wonder if there's an opportunity for United Methodist Women to be even more closely involved on the ground at the time that leading up to and when the polling takes place. I remember the polls as a friendly place growing up in my hometown, going over to a place where our little community held 4th of July celebrations and other things, to find my mom as one of the volunteers who was directing people to one voting booth or another. A side benefit was that she always got all the updates on everyone that had been in my grade school class. And so it was a place of sharing and news and community formation, as well as a place where a dedicated group of people worked long hours to make sure that the rules were followed and everyone felt comfortable. So I commend those poll workers among us and raise it as we think about how we can contribute to preserving and extending our democracy. I want to say also that United Methodist Women, along with the Texas Legislative event, is working on the theme of Draw the Circle Wide. We are also investing in the future and in ways to reach women who are not yet part of our membership. If you read Response Magazine, you'll know that something about the things that we have been prototyping, the surveys we've been doing, the information we've been gathering, and you will have heard some intimations about what's coming in the future. Similarly, if you follow Faith Talks, you will remember that in October 20th, that webinar was focused on things that are coming. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, you can access Faith Talks after the event as a podcast by going to unitedmethodistwomen.org and going to the Facebook, to the Faith Talks page. And you might want to look for that October 20th issue. We've done for years, we have wanted to extend our reach into the United Methodist Church and into communities of women who are women of faith, but don't have a spiritual community like United Methodist Women. We know that you can be a member of United Methodist Women without being a member of the United Methodist Church, but the numbers of persons who find themselves in our midst is fairly small, who are not church members. So we decided that the time had come to understand those dynamics better. We did extensive research. We got survey responses from over 24,000 women, both members and non-members of United Methodist Women, and some, including some women who are not members of the UMC. We synthesized the results, we tested the results, and what we heard was so encouraging. We learned that women who are not members of the United Methodist Church, but like us, yearn for communities of women that will foster their spiritual growth. They want to grow. They want to nurture their spirituality, and they want to be with a group of sisters that's likewise committed. We heard that they are looking for ways to participate in issues that are bigger than themselves. They want the support, they want the nurture, but they want to make a difference in the world. And the needs of women, children, and youth are as galvanizing for them as they are for you and for me. So fantastic. The relevance, the urgency, the importance of the vision of United Methodist Women is powerful. What we also heard is that some of the ways that we have organized to do this work, some of the ways that we have come together, some of the patterns that we observe are not as appealing. And we actually heard this from both members and non-members, that some of the focus that we do on our, the ways we meet locally, some of the ways that we structure ourselves, some of our formalities are not as motivating as the purpose for which we organize. So with that information, we knew that we could go to work because United Methodist Women have always been able to look at the structures and to see how to make a difference and to come up with new ways, to think about new things and to innovate within our processes. And we've done it over and over and over again. In fact, we started by doing it. In 1869 and 1870, our very first work was innovative in sending a woman doctor and a woman educator to India. It was simply not done. And we didn't wait for anybody's permission to do that. We've been innovating from the very beginning. Some of you will have participated either in those surveys that I mentioned or in some of the pilot projects that we've conducted. And you'll know that we are refreshing the Mission U resources. Some of you have received and started to use the Daily Prayer Guide, which is the new iteration of the prayer calendar. Or maybe you are you subscribe to the Daily Prayer Guide's Facebook page, and you see that online. The changes that we're working on are ones that we have tested, that we have experienced with members and with members who have leadership roles right at the moment. And we're very excited about the feedback, the level of engagement, and the work. So as we go forward, United Methodist Women will be building new on-ramps to our existing structure. We'll still have units, we'll still have circles, we'll still have districts, and we can, for those of us who the current organization serves very well, we can engage in the way that we're comfortable. But we'll have new ways of participating that will allow people who are not as comfortable and not as excited about those ways of participating to join us, to enlarge our number, to draw our circle wider, to increase our impact, and to be in ministry to and with women who are not yet members of United Methodist Women. It's a very exciting time. It's an exciting time for us. There's a lot that's uncertain. We don't know, we don't know whether we will have the 2020 General Conference this year or not. We expect to know that in the next several months. But you can mark your calendars for the week of February 28, because there will be a launch and an announcement and a big reveal of these things that I have just generally described tonight. We'll be announcing the date when we actually know what day that week we're going to do that. And you can look for us on Facebook and on the website and all those good places so that you can be a part of that the week of February 28. We'll also be celebrating, of course, the Day of Giving on March 23rd. So you can put that on your in your calendar if it's not already. Last year, many of you probably know, we had our first Facebook Live event for the Day of Giving, and it was fabulous. We got to hear from regional missionaries and deaconesses and national mission institutions and United Methodist Women members and some staff people. And the work of United Methodist Women was lifted up in the Facebook Live format from 10 to 4, I think, on March 23rd last year. On Facebook Live. That would be Eastern time. So you'll want to note that and click in when during that day when it suits your schedule. And of course, I hope that you will connect to us for assembly. Registration is still open for in-person assembly attendance. We invite all United Methodist women who are vaccinated to attend in person in Florida in May. And we are, for the very first time, going to have assembly in a hybrid format. So you can also register for digital access to assembly. And I know that's going to be exciting. We'll have speakers that join us in person, and we'll have some speakers who join us digitally. So like this event, you'll have people in the room and you'll have people on the screen for no matter how you attend assembly. So those are the things that we're looking forward to right now. And they're all part of what makes me say 2022 is going to be a wonderful, wonderful year for United Methodist Women. We are sure that God is calling us into the future. We are sure that the work for women, children, and youth is not done and is urgent. We are sure that we have an invitation which will inspire more women to join us, because God is calling us to draw the circle wide, to include more, to do the work of living out our service, of thinking about how to implement justice from the halls of Washington, D.C. and the UN climate accords to our local polling places. God is calling us, and we are poised and ready to respond. Sisters, I thank you. Thank you for the work, and thank you for your engagement.
We thank you, Harriet, so much. And I know we are sure that we want you to come back anytime you're able. But I'm also sure that we have questions. So we're going to be taking questions for Harriet from our Zoom participants and also for us here in the room. So let me know if you have a question. Darlene is circling the room. And we're looking on, Scott's doing the one on Zoom, and Darlene's got the microphone. We got a question? Oh, we definitely don't know it all. Saying you're so thorough that they're trying to think about what they still need to ask.
Hi, I actually work with Texas Impact. I'm sure I met some of y'all. I think I saw this earlier, and this is more of just a UMW question in general. How would you try to go about recruiting like younger adult women to join your organization? I know I heard some about that earlier throughout the weekend, so I was just curious, knowing I have like some like aunts and like other family members back home that would be interested in this, how would you get them kind of to join?
From a young woman in our audience, staff person for Texas Impact, how are we going to get young women into United Methodist Women? So.
Yeah, thank you. I think, I've said for years that we don't have a pallet full of young women at the resource center that we can ship out to units. The young women are, in our churches. One of the things the survey did show us was that the different age levels of people have time and a desire to engage in different ways. And so when we are thinking about the new work, we're really targeting women between 35 and 59 when we think about younger women. It's been very hard. We shared some time with UMCOM on some of their initiatives, and they found that many of the, while there were shared values all across the age level, persons from 18 to 35 had a lot less control over their time. They were less likely to be consistently in one place. And of course, they had many demands that they were juggling. And while individual invitations to people in those age groups can be very powerful, and the support that United Methodist Women can offer to women across the age level can be very important, that institutionally, when we reach out with new information, new ways to join, new initiatives that come from not from a one-to-one place, we will be much more effective in the 35 and over age level. And so that's where our initial work will be focused.
Right. We will take women of all ages and invite you to join right now.
That's absolutely right. And the new structures will make it clear that things like units on college campuses and beyond the local church are welcomed. So we will have, we will really build on the flexibility and hope that we can have some, maybe have a little different experience than UMCOM reported from their work with local churches, which are, physically located in one spot that may be not as amenable to the scheduling and fluidity that is needed, particularly for a younger audience.
All right, well, we won't let her leave the room before we get a good uh, understanding of how we can help her and get her aunts involved in United Methodist Women. Very good. Another question?
Check. A couple from online, and just so Issa knows, she's now opened herself up to every United Methodist woman in Austin, chatting her up for the rest of the week. Two questions that are kind of in a similar vein from online. First, will there be a name change? And two, could you please say more about new on-ramps?
Did you hear those, Harriet? Will there be a...
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Will there be a name change and information about new on-ramps?
And what was the second part?
Wanted information about new on-ramps.
On-ramps, yes. And the best thing I can tell you is, mark your calendar for the week of February 28. We will all learn about that stuff at that time, and look forward to delving deeper in the materials that'll be released. We'll have some materials that are available on the website. We'll have some FAQs. And a lot of the details about the how, what, why, where, when will be available in different formats from that time.
Very good, thank you. Another question? I think you know this questioner, so be ready for B's question.
Hey, Harriet. Thank you so much for being with us. We're always so excited to hear from you. I have a particular question as a Presbyterian, which is that with the new on-ramps, are some of those going to make it easier for women who are not United Methodist? I was going to say by trade. I guess that's not what I mean. But who don't go to United Methodist churches, but who feel common cause with the organization to join UMW without feeling like they're also joining the Methodist Church.
Okay. First, she is so glad that you're here with us tonight and welcomes you. And then ask, as a Presbyterian, are there going to be new on-ramps to help women that want to be a part of the work that we do, but aren't United Methodist, feel comfortable in coming on board?
Yeah, thank you. And so let me say two things about the doors of welcome. One of the things that B knows, and I imagine many people in the room know, is that the United Methodist Church is in a place of exploring what our future is. And we have churches and some conferences that are trying to find a separate path from the United Methodist Church. And those churches are, many of them are conservative and some of them are progressive. I was on the phone today with a woman whose church has already disaffiliated because the church has not moved to a position affirming LGBTQ people in all of who they are soon enough. We want to, our first circle, as we think about drawing the circle, our first circle is women who are active in United Methodist Women and whose congregations are disaffiliating or whose conferences may be thinking about separation and they want to stay connected. We want to be a lifeline for those women who may move with whose church may, whose roots in their church may be family roots that go back generations, and they are reluctant to tear up all those roots, but they want to stay part of us. So that's the first circle. The second circle is Christian women who are looking for the kind of sisterhood and the kind of commitment that we express. I want to say, B, that we are not trying to convert Presbyterian women into United Methodist women. That's not the intent. But we want to be open for women who are Presbyterian, UCC, Episcopal, non-denominational, women who have a Christian background but are not even active in a church right now, but who would like to grow spiritually to connect with the work. So yes, we really are intentional about not requiring church membership for belonging, and also not limiting the units, the location of the units to United Methodist congregations. So there might be a small town unit that would be formed of people who are not in United Methodist churches, or an online unit that would be formed around people who are engaged with the reading program, or who are committed to climate justice, and they want the kind of training and support that is available through the campaigns that we currently offer. So we're working on very explicitly being open to persons with different affiliations, because we know how appealing some of the things that we hold dear are beyond our boundaries.